Well, we have a quorum, so we might as well have a meeting.
We do.
First time in 2 months. Thank you. All right, well, let's call it to order at 7:04 on my clock. Beaverton might be a different time zone. And I think you just did the roll call. Is that good enough?
Yep.
Excellent. And then let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So everybody stand and have your shorts face the camera. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America,
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it stands,
stands,
one
one
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Cool. Feels weird doing that from the home office, but someday we'll get back to normal. All right, let's go public comments. I'm assuming this is Preston Langley.
That would be my assumption.
Okay. Preston, is that correct?
That is correct.
Fantastic. I gotta say, one of your staff stopped by my house today. Matt in the water group stopped by. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
All right, consent calendar. Let's approve the meeting minutes from April of 2011. April 11th, 2022. How's that? That sounds better.
So moved.
I'll second.
And second by Mark. Any conversation or? All right, all in favor of the consent, approving the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your right paw. Aye. Opposed? Left paw? All right, meeting minutes are approved finally. Let's go to staff reports. So I don't see Brian here tonight. So I guess it's all you, Karen.
It is. So we do have the active issues log. And there is a couple of new things that have happened in the last couple of days, which is why it's not been updated. We did have a couple of people who have requested some speed humps and a lowered speed limit on 219 as you veer off from 99 on the kind of the veer off there at Rocket Park.
Speed bumps on 219.
I did indicate that 219 was ODOT facility, so we really don't have any control over that. And told them that actually a better option may be for them to also advocate for a signal at First and Everest, which could help with the pedestrian crossing and those types of things. So just know that I'll get them on the log. You just not seen them because they've happened in the last couple of days. So so just kind of know that that's happening. Any other questions on the active issues log?
I was just looking at Villa Road and Mountain View. And so we installed a street light, like a light, not a traffic light,
Correct.
not a red, green, yellow light, a white light so they could see. Okay.
Yes.
Where's that, Mark?
Villa and Mountain View.
Oh, step in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about yeah. You almost have to, well, I've voiced my complaint previously, but.
There is definitely a sight distance issue there, but
Right,
until we
exactly.
can get
Yeah.
excuse me. Until we can do some other things, you know, we can trim back vegetation, but that's really not going to help a whole lot until we can fix that dip in the road.
Right.
So.
Well, it seems my complaint is when I'm coming out on Villa, making a left on Mountain View, I have to go into the crosswalk to be able to see the oncoming traffic. you know all that.
Yep, understood.
All right, that's it.
With that, the Springbrook Properties is starting to move forward on some of their land. That's all of the area north of Mountain View. They are having a neighborhood meeting in a couple of weeks. I believe Tony may have gotten the notice.
I did. I'm trying to find the letter. I have it here at my
September
desk.
21st.
They have signs all over the place. I went and took a picture of the sign in the park behind the Filbert Orchard.
But what that means is that they may actually be moving forward on, some land use and so that something may change there and start building some frontage improvements along Mountain View. So that would be going forward.
They haven't submitted to planning commission yet, have they?
No, they have not submitted an application.
Do they have to? The master plan was approved, so what would be the next step?
So they are looking to modify their master plan. So they have to do that, they would go through another planning, a phase, a type 3, I believe. Basically, they're modifying their master plan. If they weren't modifying the master plan, they would just come in for a subdivision application to comply with the master plan as is. So, but they have talked about modifying their master plan to change some of the elements in that, which means they have to go through a full type 3 process.
So they're on a public meeting, then has to go to
Planning
there'll be
commission.
hearings at planning commission.
And I don't know if that has to go to council or not. I'd have to double check with Doug on that one, but it definitely does have to go to planning commission. So with that, then to talk about different projects, Elliott Road is under construction. So we've had some struggles with utility locations, but we're working through those. Those are underway. The Safe Routes to School project is at Edwards Elementary is complete. So that's all done, which means that you could actually walk all the way from 99W down to Edwards along Blaine Street, and then 6th Street over to Edwards Elementary School. So that is a big plus. Moving that forward. The North Meridian ADA ramps are basically complete. So that was ADA ramps on both sides from 99W up to Fulton. We also completed there was one block that had sidewalk gaps there were no sidewalks there. And there are now sidewalks all the way on both sides, basically from 99W to Fulton, which is, I think, a big step forward. And that was all done through a grant from the state. It was part of the ARPA money that the state legislators got to assign to their districts. So it was the former Representative Post who got us $400,000 to do that work. So that's moving forward. The next ADA sidewalk project will be completing. There's a couple of ramps on Hayworth that need to be completed, and a gap of sidewalks there near Elliott Road. And if we get those done, basically you can then walk on a sidewalk with ramps from the hospital all the way to downtown by going up Crestview Drive, through Crestview to Springbrook down to Hayworth to Villa to Fulton to Meridian, and then down to downtown, which I think is a pretty exciting step forward in the ADA pedestrian bicycle master plan. So we'll be doing that. We'll also be looking at the areas further north on Meridian, and then also further south on Meridian. That'll be the next pieces of the puzzle. Just depending on how much the ramps cost us and how much money we have each year to complete that. So just kind of know that that is moving forward. And then the other project for this group is the intersection at Illinois Main 240. That request for proposals will go out in another month or two. And again, we'll start, and we'll probably want this group to be pretty involved in the first part of the discussion, which is going to be sitting down to talk to the neighbors about what do they see the problem, what do people see the problem is. Trying not to walk in with a preconceived notion of what the solution is, but let's talk about what the problem is and then move it forward from there, if that makes sense. So I think that's it for, oh, and then pavement, the pavement project will be awarded at the next meeting, and that will be Bircher from 99W to Hayes, and then Sherman Street will be done. So I think that's it transportation wise. We do have other, the sidewalk on North College is actually will be, the bid opening will be next week, I think. So that will be moving forward next spring to extend that sidewalk further north.
They're opening the bids next week and won't start in construction until next spring.
Have you tried to go through ODOT's contracting?
A few times. It's not that slow, but so did the city's water line get rebid to go out to get
It
done
did, it
simultaneously?
did. And that is moving forward. And that's one of the reasons why they're putting it off, because for the water line has to be lowered before the sidewalk can go in. And we couldn't get, they can't get the pipe in place until then. So they gave us until the end of March to get the pipe in place, and then they'll come in after that to do the sidewalk.
That'd be a nice completion, because then at least most of the subdivisions on the north end would then have a continuous sidewalk all the way to downtown as well.
Close. There is still be a couple of gaps, and we'll continue to work on getting those filled also.
But I think we can walk internally inside our subdivisions to get down to visit.
Yeah.
What's the street my mom lives on? Not that I expect you to know that. I'm saying that out loud for myself.
Mark, where does Tony's mom live?
Edgewood. She lives off of Edgewood.
There we go. Okay.
But I think we can walk down to there from both sides, from the elementary school and from the east side of college, at least down to Edgewood. And then that's, I think, where your sidewalk project's going to end.
Yep.
Or the state's project.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely good news to try and get some of those gaps for pedestrians filled. So that's what I have for project updates and general information.
Excuse me. Preston, you're on here for staff. Is there any update you want to give?
No, it's pretty much just maintenance as usual. We just got our paving drag box. So we're trying to figure out how to get that mounted onto our trucks. And then we'll be able to do some skim patching on some streets and start working on doing some minor inlays to kind of prolong the life of some of our roads until we can get to do full rehabs.
Fantastic. All right. Well, shall we move into anything on the old business we should talk about? Or active issues, project updates? Is that under new businesses, the ones you approved? I guess it is. So anything under old business, Karen, that we can talk about, the mission statement, distracted driving update, or complete street?
So a couple things, that just the distracted driving update. So at our last official meeting, we had talked about, we wanted to really push on getting that distracted driving message out to folks. And I know we did push out on the city's Facebook page and on the website. And then also the library pushed it out on their Facebook and web page. And then, so there were quite a few of those things that did happen. I don't know if Casper got anything at the high school or not. And so, but that may be something that we continue to push for, to see if we can reach out to somebody at the high school to get that message out that, I know I keep seeing commercials on, distracted driving and put the phone down and no texting and those kinds of things. So I know, again, this group had said that they really wanted to push that message out. So I will reach out to the high school again. And actually maybe George Fox also, and see if they can and push that message out again to folks as everybody's coming back to school.
And then for the complete street update, I reached out slowly to Chris, Planning Commission Chair, today, just to start the conversation of if it can be a priority for Planning Commission, if rules and regulations and such need to change, if we really push for it from Planning Commission or from traffic safety. You'd have to go through Planning Commission to get the TSP changed and some of the development code changed language, and that all have to go through Planning Commission. So I started with the Planning Commission Chair. We'll see if we can make it a priority for them as well. But they're gonna have their hands full of Springbrook now, so who knows?
And then the last thing, I think I gave an unofficial update on Sheridan Street at the last non-meeting that we had, but we did have the Sheridan Street open house for the intersection of Sheridan and College Street. We had 3 attendees that were not staff. But the 2 alternatives that they wanted to move forward was changing the street to a one-way street and or installing like a pork chop there at College and Sheridan. And I have not had an opportunity to sit down and really put any kind of conceptual design on that to see what that looks like, what that would take, and have that conversation also with ODOT about what portions of that they would agree with or not agree with, since College Street is theirs. So
It's Sheridan Street from Main to College or College to River?
no, the other direction.
In front of the Cultural Center?
Mhm.
So then the west
Yeah,
leg of
over to
Sheridan.
Main.
And which direction one way?
The idea was that it would be one way westbound. Westbound, one way westbound. And whether it would go all the way over to or just one block, there are a couple of different ideas that could happen with that scenario. The hardest part is going to be, how do you cut that street off so that there is no connection to College Street? And then providing some kind of turnaround for folks that get down there and can't figure out how to get out, the fire trucks. And then you also have, trash trucks and all those kinds of things all have to be figured out how that would occur. So. And again, I I'll apologize now. I have not had an opportunity to sit down and try and figure out what truly what that would look like and figure out, where to go from here. So, because we only did have 3 people, so either one of those options is really going to affect that neighborhood, which means that we will have to reach back out to them again and try and get them engaged. Because you guys know as well as I do is if we went out there and actually put a barricade up or something like that, we would hear about it, even though they hadn't attended any of the public meetings. So.
Not sure who it was that suggested they just make the change and then go backwards. Make it safer and let them complain, then we can go back.
Were all 3 people at the meeting from the neighborhood?
Yeah, one was Robert Suppy, who lives on Sheridan on the other side. And then the other 2 people were at the house on the southwest corner of Sheridan and College.
Okay. So I'm guessing the people at the house are people who have the biggest issue with the current situation.
No, actually, it's Mr. Suppy who has the biggest issue with the current situation. The folks that actually own that house don't live there.
Okay.
They live elsewhere within the city. So they weren't actually sure what the issue was.
Oh,
So they're not privy to the fire department responding there every other week for crashes on a regular basis, not every other week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next step on that is discussions with ODOT is I was kind of shocked to see they were able to go through and do pavement maintenance on that stretch of road without upgrading the ADA ramps.
Yes. They were trying to get away with just doing basically the wheel paths so that they could not have to do ADA. My opinion is that what they did required that they should have brought all those ramps up.
It's a standard they hold me to.
Agreed.
But I'm not going to complain about having better asphalt on that stretch of road. It was
There is
falling
that.
apart.
There is that.
So since they spoke with us and they told us since they weren't milling and they were only filling the wheel ruts, it didn't meet the standards to have to upgrade the ramps. Whether I agree with that or not, that's a whole nother question, but
Especially considering they are currently under an ADA settlement. You would think that they would err on the side of the other, but that was their decision. So
Well, more to follow on that, I guess. More to come.
mhm.
Cool. All right, the other new business is the limited traffic decision at Franklin and School. Last month, we kind of gave you a informal okie dokie. We just need, now we have a quorum to formalize the okie dokie. So that is the intersection of Franklin and School. I'm trying to find
Franklin and
my-
North.
Oh, North Franklin and North School Street.
Yes, North School Street. Yes.
And I'm trying to find that on my Franklin and School. It is the road that parallels 219, one road to the west. Kind of 2 blocks up and over from the intersection we're looking at just now.
Correct.
And the decision was to install a stop sign or a pair of stop signs on the, sorry, I'm on Franklin Street. So north-south or east-west stop control allowing School Street to continue north-south unstopped, uncontrolled.
Correct.
So what we'd look for is a motion to approve the limited traffic decision.
I've got a question on that first. Is there any concern about Franklin and Howard being the only intersection that doesn't have similar stop signs along Franklin?
Well, what I will tell you is that the decision went out to everybody within that area and nobody brought it up that there was a concern with that. You know, in fact, if I hadn't have heard from the neighborhood, I probably would have put the stop signs on the opposite, on School, not on Franklin.
Okay.
But I went with what they had requested because of the bus stop there and the fact that it is a direct route. School is a direct route down to the playground and the library and the cultural center. So that's why I did approve what they had requested.
And Howard Street is one block in either direction, north or south of Franklin. So it's not as much of a traffic generator.
Correct. And again, it's not the bus route.
Answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, I just going along Franklin Street, there's stop signs at each intersection, and that would just leave the Howard and Franklin being the different street there. So I mean,
Blaine has the stop signs because of the railroad track, right?
I'm not sure why it has stop signs.
That's where, yeah, that's where the railroad crosses Blaine.
Right,
from
but
Carroll.
whether that's why I
but that's what the neighborhood wanted, though, correct?
correct. And I do have to give the neighbors kudos. They actually submitted the application and the petition, everything that we asked of them without, literally it came in as a complete package. So,
That doesn't happen very often.
No.
All right, so is there any other questions or comments about it? Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. All right, all in favor? Right, Paul? Aye,
I,
it is unanimous.
who was the second?
I think it was Greg.
Yeah.
Greg, okay, thank you. Just
By a
taking
hair, he
notes.
beat Roger. All right, and then last thing we have on the agenda tonight is the bike lane option.
So, this came up from Commissioner Woodruff, and it has to do with, in particular, roadways that are required to have bike lanes, and we're building them out in pieces. So Villa Road being one, or Winooski Street, where a subdivision comes in or a development of some kind. We require them to do frontage improvements, which includes a bike lane if it is required, and there's no bike lane on either side. The question was, does it make sense? Should we do that? Should we, allow for parking? Are there other things? Because a piecemeal bike lane does become challenging for those people who are using it. And let's be honest, you know, I go down Winooski and people are parked in the bike lane all the time, which is not supposed to happen. So I reached out to multiple other jurisdictions to ask, what do you guys do? Do you, and really there's a couple of different options and all of them have done pieces of these. And I don't know that there's a great answer to any one of them. So it's kind of, I'll let you know what they do and then we can go from there. You know, some of them do exactly what we did on Winooski, which is as they do the development, they put the bike lane in and it just becomes piecemeal. Others have required developers to pay a fee in lieu of, basically, and give the city the money. And then when there's enough money in the pot, then the city goes in and installs the bike lanes. And then another one is where we just require the developer to agree that they will, when we tell them to, they will come in and install the bike lane. There's pros and cons for all of those different kinds of options. The issue with not installing the bike lane is where we are, as this group knows, on Villa Road, where we've got a bunch of people parking in the bike lane or where the bike lane would be. And to change that pattern of behavior now makes it challenging. So again, you know, this group can provide input options. You know, one of the things that maybe we wait a little bit and see where this group with the conversation with the planning commission goes with the whole complete streets. Maybe because maybe we look at a different type of bike lane option. Maybe we go with more of a sharing the road or a cycle track, or maybe there's another alternative than putting the bike lanes on the roads in the ultimate of what we want to do. But I'll let you guys have that discussion. Like I said, you know, there aren't any great options as the current TSP sits with the bike lane or with the cross sections of the road. And again, no other jurisdiction has really come up with a great way to handle the piecemeal development. So
I will take the bully pulpit, but the idea of having the developers build it right now and stripe it for the bike lane to the ultimate would be my preference. The idea of building it, build the ultimate curb line, pave everything, because you're never going to be able to go back and get the value of money out of them. Costs are just continually going up. So even if you put them on the hook today, assuming they still exist once they get out, because they're all LLCs and they close those LLCs down as soon as the development's sold, trying to get the money out of them would be arduous at best, impossible at worst. So getting it built now, I like. I don't know if you can get a bond that long, bonds for 10 years or more. I don't know how hard that would be. Probably pretty challenging. So build it now is my personal preference. If there's enough room to allow for on-street parking and they choose to do that, I would request a signed document that says the non-remonstrance agreement, that when this bike lane is fully striped out and connected, you can't say boo about us taking the on-street parking away that you've been using. And that way the bikes are not disjointed.
Of course, that's the developer citing that, not the people that are living there now.
But if you put it on the title that it goes with the law of the land, the owner of the land, you buy this knowing you buy this property knowing you're getting that condition. But I haven't talked to my bike people about this. Clearly I'm not an avid bicyclist, but is some bike lane better than no bike lane? You know, if it's, you know, you get 200 feet of bike lane on a 2-mile corridor, is that bad?
I think it kind of depends on it depends on the bicycler. I used to commute by bicycle. And bike lanes were nice, but unnecessary. You know, my mantra when I was cycling by bike was take the lane. If there's no bike lane, just get in the traffic lane, face the consequences. Just depends on if they're serious enough to do that. And yeah. That's my 2 cents.
So what are you leaning towards build it all and build a piece of it, or allow them to park for a while, or?
You know, that's always the struggle. You know, it's always frustrating to me that we kind of have to wait for someone to develop the property. I mean, that's what's going on with Mountain View right now. That's why I can't commute right now by bike. Because I don't really feel like taking my life into my hands to go through the death, or as we like to call it, Death Gulch. And I followed a bicyclist the other day, and I was like, dude. So, you know, and part of that, you know, we're waiting for Springbrook to. How many years have we been waiting for Springbrook to develop? Because that's what we've keep being told that, oh, when they develop Springbrook, we're going to have a bike lane down Mountain View. But and then to kick the can further down, waiting for, well, let's just make them pay a fee and we're not going to put a bike lane. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Mountain View, but let's just say if we allow the developer, oh, we're not going to do it all at once, we're just going to do half of it, so pay us a hunk of change and then we'll put it in the bank and then wait later. That's kind of distasteful to me. And I really see your point. You know, construction costs are just going sky high. You know, we just signed a contract to redo our floors, and the winning bid was twice the bid that we turned down when we moved in because we thought it was too high. And this time around, 2x was a bargain. So, you know, that I fully understand and fully buy into that. Is what's it going to cost us down the road? Yeah, I guess I'm leaning toward let's build them now while we got the chance.
But the question is, what does Karn make them do for striping? Do we stripe it as a bike lane, or stripe it or not stripe it at all? Because that's kind of what we ran into in Elliott. They were the curb lines were built to ultimate, and only the center line stripe was done, so that extra unallocated pavement was used for parking, while it was always guaranteed to be, not guaranteed, it was always in the TSP to be bike lanes in the future.
I guess I have a question.
Mhm.
If we're talking about, do we stripe it as a bike lane or do we not stripe it as a bike lane? Would it be possible to stripe it with something else that clearly indicates this is not parking? Or is that just a waste of money?
So you mean like put a different kind of stripe in there so it's not truly striped as a bike lane, but it's not parking either?
Right. If we came up with, say, a minimum distance that we say, look, 10 feet is not worth it, or whatever, you know, whatever a minimum distance is. If it's less than that, we're just going to drop some kind of marking on that says the point of it is future bike lane, but we're not going to put it in right now because we don't have anything to continue it on. But if we ever do get that, we hook it all up and we redo it properly. Just a thought.
My only concern is we keep on talking about these complete streets. And I agree with what Tony says, is that costs are going to keep on going up. but how much is it going to cost us if we do something now that's kind of piecemeal, maybe really isn't working, just to have to change it whenever in the future, if we do get this complete streets program up and running through, the planning commission and things like that. My experience, I used to bicycle a lot more than I do now, and hoping I'm going to get back into it. But, I did Winooski and some other streets, and you just take the street, you just take the lane. I don't think us putting a bike path in and then you're still having to kind of weave in and out of cars. I'm not seeing the advantage. I'm not seeing where it's really doing anything other than just coloring the pavement. People aren't going to be following it and aren't going to be using it. And it may be confusing the drivers coming up when all of a sudden the bicycle pops out from in between some cars to hit the bike path or, the bike lane and stuff like that. So I would be in favor of having the developer put the money in a bond or something that maybe would accrue interest that might offset higher costs in the future and stuff. And then we can go at it, because it seems like, we've talked about this a lot over the years, but this whole city is kind of piecemeal. We've got some places that work really well, and we got other places that don't work at all. And trying to patch it all together, I think sometimes we kind of pat ourselves on the back for saving a dime so we can spend $1 later.
I think there's a case for both of those, Neil. And there's some areas of Newberg that are more ripe for additional development that will be, piecemeal together faster than others. And I don't know which way we'd go on that. Would you take the money in areas that are more likely to develop and then force them to build it in the others, or vice versa?
I'm just afraid of building or, having developer put something in and then we have to pay to change it later. Whereas if we put that money into some type of an account or a bond or something like that, if we did planning commission and us, or however it possibly came up, if it does come up, we do have something that goes around. We don't have to go and take steps backwards to change it, to try to come up with a overall plan for the city. Because if I agree, there are places that it would probably slip in pretty easily right now and work pretty well. But is that going to be the case 10, 15, 20 years from now? My crystal balls are just a little bit cloudy in that regard.
When the developers required to put the space in for the bike lane, but it really isn't marked or anything at this time, are there no parking signs and things installed along there so people are aware that that's not a parking area? It is designated for a future bike lane?
Actually, what we require right now as part of the conditions of a development to occur is if the street is supposed to have bike lanes, they have to put the bike lanes in and stripe the bike lane.
And it designated no parking.
The bike lane itself,
Automatically, once you stripe a bike lane, it is no parking. We don't always put a no parking sign in and or yellow curb, but per the Oregon Vehicle Code there's no parking in a bike lane. So, but yeah, we do require them to put the stripe in for the bike lane itself if there's supposed to be a bike lane on the street, but we don't always require a stop sign or a no parking sign to be installed.
I was just going to ask, kind of follow up for Tony was talking about on Elliott, where that had been planned for a bike lane, but yet parking had been allowed to happen there.
So the difference there on Elliott is in the interim between the developer building it and us coming through, the bike lane was never actually striped when they built the curb. They just built the curb at the ultimate location and had probably an 18-foot wide travel lane across that frontage of those developments. And so people just use that extra area for on-street parking. Whereas now, if you look at some of the new developments that are coming in, Karn's having them actually stripe the bike lane.
I'm trying to get us out of the Villa Road. Again, those of you who have been on this committee for a while, we've had this Villa Road discussion multiple times. Neil just rolled his eyes about bike lane versus parking. So I'm trying to get us out of, as we're moving forward, get us out of some of those discussions.
Do you want a motion, Tony, or just discussion? Or
I think this is going to kind of follow more a lot of that discussion about complete streets as well.
that was, if you wanted the motion, that's where I was going to head, was to, table it for 6 months till we can get a little bit more of a feel with planning commission, what they are feeling about this, if they like the idea, don't like the idea. We can come back in 6 months or a year and talk about it and kind of see where the lay of the land is then.
In the interim, I think Karn's current approach that you're using right now is build it and stripe it with tapers in and out.
Maybe that when we come back and revisit it, we can also ask the police department for some stats on bicycle accidents in Newberg, where they happen, what type of accidents in bike lanes, out of bike lanes, and things like that. That might help educate us a little bit too as to what's really going on.
And parking enforcement, when they're how many parking tickets are written for people parking in bike lanes?
Yeah, good. That'd be a good thing to know too.
The agenda did have a list of those incidents. It's on the last page of the agenda. It has locations and the little bit of information about each one.
Most of them are on 99W, which makes sense.
80% of our traffic. First and River, bicyclist riding wrong direction ran into a vehicle pulling into First from River.
If you read the one about Maine and Sheridan, it sounds like it may be a business to get hit by cars.
Driver, gate rider, $30 a month.
Do that 3 or 4 times a day. Nice little side job.
Instead of the Safeway driveway and Panhandle, you can just go get ran over by cars. Wonder which one's more profitable. Yeah, those are a lot are Portland.
And if you notice, a lot of them have to do with motorized wheelchairs, not necessarily bicyclists.
And those are all 2021 data.
Correct.
So a total of 12, 11, which isn't a lot for the amount of vehicles we have in Newberg. The vehicle miles traveled. That's a good sign.
Yeah, 12 total. 6 were vehicle at fault and 4 were the bike or ped at fault. And 2 were unknown.
Well, I think I agree with Neil. Let's have the conversation with Planning Commission. And I don't know, Karn, if there's development that are coming in, is there an opportunity we could weigh in to look at it with you for the bike lane decision and conditions?
Yeah, the only issue that we have is the fact that we have a short period of time once it's deemed complete in order to issue a decision. And especially with this group only meeting quarterly. Technically, what I'll tell you is once it's the land use application is deemed complete, engineering has 2 weeks to write a decision. So there's not a whole lot of time for consultation.
Yeah. Man, your timeline is fast. To have to chew through and look at something.
I mean, I can certainly send it out to the group, but if you guys wanted to, participate, I guess, or whatever the proper wording is, you'd have to somehow meet as a group in that time frame to provide any kind of feedback.
Or provide feedback as citizens.
Correct, you could do that.
I would suggest just let Karen do what she's been doing. This is a problem we had when we met with planning commission before, was they sent us something that was about those apartments behind Fred Meyer's. And we were meeting monthly then. And by the time we got it and talked about it and wanted information and had the next meeting and stuff, we were already outside the 120-day window for the developer and, you know, the state law for planning commission and stuff. So it's as noble as the effort is, and I agree with you, Tony, it would be awesome if we could. It throws a humongous wrench in the system, and it gives the city kind of and planning and kind of a black eye.
And I think
trying to mess with it.
And I think this goes back to the whole conversation that we had started, and we've started building some of those policies, right? And if this body adopts a policy, and then it's my job to implement that policy. And so again, as we're working through some of these things, we did some of the stop signs, and we did some speed zones, no parking zones. I think we did a traffic calming. Did we ever finish that? Does this group remember? I'd have to go back and look.
I don't think we did. I think Paul gave us a memo and it kind of died.
So we can certainly go back, but that is one way that you guys can provide your impact or your influence, in the sense that you adopt these policies, I implement those policies, and then that we're doing what you guys would like us to do, kind of thing. So that is, I think, the easiest and the best way for you guys to participate in the land use part of the process. Unless it's a larger one and it's going to planning commission, because you have to remember, planning commission doesn't even see all of them. You know, they see the ones that are required to go to them for whether it's a CUP or you know, a larger, you know, master plan kind of decision. But, you know, standard subdivisions and stuff like that don't planning commission doesn't get a chance to participate in that process either.
It's only the zone changes and conditional uses.
Right.
I would suggest we just plan on in a year, we'll bring it up, you know, put it on our calendar for a year from now. And maybe Karen can bring us a list of the ones that she has authorized or put in during that year. And we can get stats from the police department, see if there's any incidences going on there in those areas and everything. And then just try to learn from it and see where we are a year from now, see where we are with planning commission. And I know the complete street thing is not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a many years process and stuff, but we got to start somewhere. And, you know, I think it actually started probably, I'm guessing, going on 8 to 10 years ago when Leslie and I can't remember who else, Bob, he was the dispatch supervisor, I can't remember, Mary Newell. The two of them brought it to traffic safety, and then we took it to planning commission. So I know it's a slow process, but if we just keep on, if we think it's important and we keep on working at it, hopefully we'll have some benefits somewhere down the road.
Yeah, and now's a good time in the sense that, so the next transportation system plan is going to get started here in the next probably 1.5 to 2 years. So this work, you know, that you guys will do with the planning commission will lead directly into that transportation system plan and get adopted as a part of that process, which makes a lot of sense.
And it was good for us. We had Carl Berkey then, who sat on that transportation system plan from traffic safety and kind of, you know, was our little representative. We were able to kind of squeeze him in. Hopefully with what you're doing, Tony, when all that starts happening, maybe we can try to do the same again with somebody.
Agreed. Yeah, I will tell you that this is just a huge mosaic of things we have to think about. Development, Newberg Development Code, the TSP, current trends in bike ped, and how that all weaves together with existing and future projects and the city's capital improvement project list. Cities put more projects on the street in the last 5 years than 10, 15 years combined. And so I don't know where that money's coming from, but kudos to Karin and the team for putting our city back together and actually investing into the infrastructure.
We're trying.
So. And for Preston for maintaining it so well. Haven't seen any hydrants blowing up here recently.
Well, the fire department keeps breaking them though.
Neil.
Not anymore, I don't.
Not anymore.
No matter how much I miss it, I don't matter. It doesn't happen anymore.
Miss those 3 a.m. wake ups.
I don't miss that. I just.
All right. Anything else for today? Kind of go around the corner here. Jesse, anything to add? Comments?
Nope.
All right. Roger?
Oh, good meeting.
Excellent. Mark?
I just have one comment. I happen to be going to Safeway around 4:00 p.m. and on a weekday. And with DCI, I know it's a temporary situation while they rebuild their building. Man, trying to get through the 4-way stop in front of Safeway was crazy. But again, I know it's a temporary situation until they can get rebuilt. I just
Karin,
thought
go do council. We can get a signal warranted right there.
yeah, there you go.
We actually do have money in a pot, fee in lieu of that people have paid to put a signal in. And that would probably be the next project that we would look at.
That's it.
What's that, Mark?
Oh, nothing. That was just the end of my comment. Was just, I know it's the other parts of the day, it doesn't seem to be bad, but I think their shift gets off at 4 and then Ada gets off at 4 and Horatio probably has a shift that gets off at 4. And so it's gridlock crazy time down on that end of Springbrook.
The good news is the Crestview connection down to the Providence signal.
Yeah, I take that all the time and I think everybody's avoiding it. I'm like the only car on the street.
I know it's the best kept secret in Newberg right now.
Right. But it doesn't help you if you're going to Safeway for, a couple of tomatoes or whatever,
It might be faster while open around.
ice cream, interfering with my ice cream run. Gotta be a law.
All right, on that, Neil. Nothing, Greg?
Nope.
All right, our next meeting is October 10th. Now that we've had our summer meeting.
So correct. One of the things that came up at the last meeting was, do we want to have an October 10th or did we want to push it off until the only requirement is that we have 1 a quarter. So we could push it off to November or December if the group wanted to. Just pulling out my calendar. Thoughts? You just
I
wanna do it?
I personally will be out of town October 10th. So November would work better for me.
Actually, is October. Oh, I'm in 2021. That's not helpful.
Is Columbus Day a
Right.
city holiday?
Pardon?
Is Columbus Day a city holiday?
No, it is not.
Okay.
So if we wanted to push it to November, it would be November 14th.
I'm good for that. Roger's nodding, Mark's nodding, Jesse, Greg. Thumbs up. Okay,
So we'll make it November 14th.
at
And
least
then-
for the 6 of us.
And then, and as long as the 6 of you show up, we can have a quorum. So there you go. And then continue Zoom. Yes. Okay. I'll ask you that every time, just because I just want to make sure doing what you guys want done. So, all right. So we'll see you November 14th via Zoom at 7 p.m.
Fantastic. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Good night, all.
All right.